Yeah, I want to talk about the silver scammers and just pooping the cat. Almost stepped on him. It's alright though. Man, I can't see him at night. But anyway, I want to talk about the silver scammers because actually before I put out a lot of videos about demand destruction on silver because there's people out there pumping. Now, eventually, possibly, if there's a real catastrophic collapse and there's a major problems on the globe, silver can go to over $500 an ounce. Eventually, some point in time, that's really, really radical circumstances. I mean, that's not totally out of the question, okay? But I did point out under normal times, if silver starts going up to like, say, $100 an ounce or more, you're going to have demand destruction. They'll find ways around to use other materials instead of silver. They will develop ways. Science will develop ways. It's just like that with anything. There's always a way around it. If something gets too expensive, you know, it can they'll find ways around it. What may actually drive up silver and gold is a panic into the markets. A panic. And I don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but I think there's going to be a panic at one point in time because of all the debt that all the countries are in. There will be a panic at one point in time. There are people like Mark Farber. You know, they're not stupid for making these bets. Soros is also into gold right now, the gold miners. And see, what changed though, from say early 2013 to say mid 2013, there was a lot more people short on gold and things like that before, early in the year. And then, as of, like, say, May 2013, the 6 bullion banks and the 6 largest bullion banks in the world are net long on gold. There's a number of people that took positions, you know, that are long. Not everybody's long on gold and silver, but there's more that are long on the material, on the metals. Now, that's a pretty decent indication. Now, what I'd never expected silver to go all the way back down to 18 something, but I did say that I expected it to go solidly below 26, 24, 24 and a half. That's what I thought, you know. But I didn't think it was going to go all the way down to 18. But, you know, now I'm just think that the bottom is already here. Now, there's a lot of people thinking that I am pumping silver. No, I wasn't pumping silver when it was high. Really, you know. And if you look back, you know, if there was not manipulation in the markets, it would have continued even higher. Because it's actually what's going on in the markets. There is some truth to a lot of things that the silver pumpers say, that there's the markets are pretty much they're just buying and selling electronic and paper silver. The price discovery mechanism is pretty much broke for this commodity, pretty much. But I want to point this out. You see, you're not exactly buying silver or gold because of a purely speculative bet. It's in case, and this is really why Mark Farber has his gold. He says it's not really a purely speculative bet. He thinks there might be a systemic global financial collapse in the markets. That's why he has gold. Now, if you look back, I don't even care what country you take. You can take Russia as a good example, man. They got their currency wiped out a bunch of times in the last 100 years since they went to Bolshevism. 500 years before Bolshevism, they had a very stable currency. And since Bolshevism, since it took over, the Bolshevik Revolution took over in 1917, the currency hasn't been stable. And actually, the fall of the Soviet Union was actually planned. Okay? It was planned to basically strengthen their system by modifying it with some capitalism. But it's actually gotten more elitist than even during the Soviet times, probably. There's no freedom there like the way it should be. It's pretty bad news. But it's better. It's a better, more stable system for the elite. That's the thing. But the thing that you really want to keep in mind is this. When inflation hits, it hits unexpectedly. Look at all the examples that happened, like you say in Hungary after the war. There's a lot of things that can happen. Something can happen with the United States militarily, too. You never know, sometime in the future. It happens all at once. Prices double in 24 hours are extreme examples, but prices double in 3 months are still bad examples. And when it hits all at once. The Weimar Republic was an example. Actually, gold and silver went down for a while. Then all of a sudden, it just took off like a rocket ship. All of a sudden. And it doesn't last that long because basically it can only last so long until the currency is pretty much worth nothing. So when it takes off, when inflation really takes off, it goes out of control. It spirals out of control very quickly. See, in that case, you definitely want metals. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that is really the reason for having them. But if you look even technically, 21 to 22 was a very strong line in the sand, and it broke that. But 18 something is an even very, very, very strong line in the sand, and it has not broken that. Now, typically, what happens with silver, it goes like pretty steady for a number of while, and when it takes off like a rocket ship and it gets too far ahead of itself, it corrects, and it corrects for a long period of time. And that's exactly what's happened. But if you look back historically, that's what happens. But don't expect it to correct forever, because we're not in normal times, because what's going on is the debt situation. They're going to keep printing more money, basically. You know? It's like if they can't unwind the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. There's absolutely no way. There's no way. The debt situation is a paper game. But if that currency got into the economy, what would happen is, like all the money that's out there that's actually being held by foreign banks and being held by the Federal Reserve on the balance sheet, if it actually got, things can get out of hand. And the thing is, this is always what's happened. You see, the central bank tries to stimulate the economy piecemeal, a little bit at a time. And people are fearful, or actually it's like companies and banks are fearful of lending money. Corporations are fearful of investing in new ventures and things like that. They hoard it. They try to not spend it. They try to look for safety, where they don't want to take too much risk, which means like they don't want to get into new ventures that would cause more employment and more money to get into the middle class and that type of stuff. But what happens is, it's all like the central bank still keeps trying to stimulate the economy more and more. And it keeps building up and building up, almost like water behind a dam. And then at one point in time, it starts to trickle out. Because, one person starts, to get into something, and they realize, I better buy this, they better buy these assets because they look like they're going up. The signals are there, and it just takes a life of its own. That's really somehow sometimes how inflation starts. But when it starts, it starts all of a sudden. It's like you're not going to have any warning. The inflation period may only last for a year, but in that period of a year, maybe the prices could have gone up several times. Maybe a gallon of gasoline will cost $20. Maybe a loaf of bread will cost $12 to $15. See, that type of stuff. So, I mean, that's what will happen in severe inflation, and that's where your silver is going to protect you in that way. So, I'm not a bullion dealer, and I realize there's various aspects to this game. First off, if there's like normal times and silver goes up and gets too far ahead of itself, they'll find a way to not use silver in a lot of products, and there'll be demand destruction. I mentioned this many times before. But the real big crux of the problem is the debt situation. And that actually is going to actually destroy the currency ultimately. And it's pretty much going on everywhere in the world. Japan's going on with record QE, to Europe starting it, and everywhere it's doing it. It's everywhere it's going on. It's probably being done by design. And what's going to happen is they want to have a global new financial system to be installed after that. Now, the one problem I see foresee with silver and gold is, and this Mark Farber actually alludes to this. He thinks, I see this though, almost clear as a bell. There's gonna be a if silver and gold went up very, very high, there's gonna be a very, very high tax on it. That's what will happen. That's the one drawback I see to it. That's actually realistic. There would be a very high tax, even in the 70s, when oil went up so much during the Contra, the Iran and the Iran hostage situation in '79, when they had severe tensions in the Middle East. Oil went up a real lot. They had an excise tax in oil in '79 around that time. They'll do the same thing with the metals. What I think is going to happen, though, what's really, and I've been saying this, the catalyst is going to be what's going to happen in the Middle East. It's like you're not going to see silver go up by itself. It's going to be silver, oil, palladium, platinum, everything. Pretty much everything's going to go up all at once. The only thing that's not going to be going up and staying, well, it's going to look more, have less worth in comparison to the hard assets, is going to be the dollar itself. But like I said, when this happens, it happens all at once. Look at all the curves on silver in the past when it had bull markets. It's it did all of it, all the gains, like in 6 or 9 months. It just went ballistic. That's just how it happens. That's just what happens. I suspect it seems to be every 3 years. 2005 was one peak. 2008 was another peak. Then it crashed in 2008. 2011 was another peak. Then it brought down. 2014 maybe another peak. And I think 2017 will be the final peak. That's my suspicion. I think in 2014 it's actually going to be between 72 and 75. And oil is going to be over $150 a barrel. All right. But it's going to probably start heating up here pretty soon. We're starting to see some signs of it. But really what's going to be the catalyst is severe tensions in the Middle East. That's going to be the major catalyst. But once these things happen, it's not going to be a matter of, can I jump in now? You're going to be too scared to, because you're going to be thinking it's too high. Like people were thinking $30 silver was way too high. Then when it went up to 47 or 48, they thought it was too low. Now they're hoping for 30 again. But when it breaks through 50, they're going to be screaming about 100. And I'm going to be saying, no, I don't think it's going to go that high that fast. I think it's going to correct below 50, solidly below 50 again, and then it's going to make its charge up over 100 by maybe 2017. So people do what they want, but I don't sell any bullion. And actually, when these people were really pumping the metals, I pointed out that Max Kaiser was pushing that buy silver, break GP Morgan. And people were getting mad at me for this, and that Eric Sprott sold right at the top, and so did David Morgan. He sold right at the top too. And if they were trying to break JP Morgan, why did they sell? Right? I mean, I pointed out a number of things. But right now, I think the market is, it's low right now. So people want to say it's going to go to single digits. Well, go short it then. If you think you're so sure it's going to go to single digits, you should short it. I'm not going to do that. But if you're so sure it's going to go to single digits, you should short silver. You should short it. But I would not take that bet. But like I said, what happens is when there's hyperinflation, it hits suddenly. It hits suddenly. It's like it's too late. It's too late. I don't sell bullion. And the only reason I get on here is because I don't like the exaggerators one way or the other. The only possibility I could see with silver going, I think in 2017 it'd probably be 150 or more. It might be that high. But the only way it could actually go to, say, $500 silver, There'd have to be really seriously, extremely bad, catastrophic problems in the West for it to go that high. And you don't want it to go that high. You don't want it to go that high. That would have to be something very, very, very bad. So, but anything's possible. But I don't think it's I don't think it's going to go low as people are thinking right now. Some of the naysayers. The dollar is looking pretty damn bad in the situation going on with the debt default. I know they say they got it resolved, but it's going to come up again. It's going to come up again. Reality's going to strike again, and they're just not going to be able to just keep borrowing money forever. I think reality's going to come up probably even after they think they got it resolved. This is going to ebb and flow a lot, and it's never going to be out of the news. You'll probably see more problems even at the end of the year, too. So, just remember, whenever a country fell, basically the currency fell, maybe the country doesn't have to fall, but the currency fell, really, what retained wealth? Silver and gold is one of the best things around. And it's the game you're playing, because when it happens, it could literally happen overnight. I mean, it's just like that. Literally happen overnight. And there's a lot of examples where it happened just like that. Something happened overnight, and from then on, for the next 6 months, there was rampant inflation. Prices doubled sometimes in some cases in 8 hours, 24 hours. I don't think it'd be like that. It could be doubling in 3 months. 4 months. That would be pretty severe. If you had a doubling of prices, every 4 or 5 months for a year, I mean, your gasoline would be well over, I don't know, it'd be at least $12 to $15, right? And figure out what your food bills would be then. But your silver would probably be way the hell up there too. It's going to happen all at once. So, like I said, I don't sell bullion. But the downside, I think, that nobody's thinking about is there's going to be, and I think Mark Farber pointed this out, they're going to steal a good part of his wealth because of taxes. The have-nots are going to vote taxes against the people who have precious metals. So, if it goes up really high, the have-nots will vote taxes against the people who have precious metals. That's the one juggernaut that I can't see a way out of. So it's a catch-22. But you should still make out pretty well.